Cool. All right.
Cool.
We'll jump into it. So, I'm honoured and blessed to actually have my first time having two guests tonight. So I've been joined by Tess Otineru, welcome, and also Sam Tangitau, welcome, bro.
Hello.
Cool. We'll start with you, Tess, because I was meant to have Sam by himself, and he got scared and asked to bring you as his bodyguard. So
It's actually the other way around.
Your title, like what you actually do. So both of them are working at Microsoft, but we'll dig into that later. But just your titles right now, please. What are you doing? What's your role at Microsoft?
My role at Microsoft is financial controller, enterprise controller for New Zealand, Thailand, Philippines, and Vietnam.
So, yeah, okay. What does that mean? We'll bring it down.
Plain English, please. For us,
To be honest, I'm trying to figure that out myself, to be honest. I tell Sam that all the time. What do I do? I'm not quite sure. I think what people tell me my role is that I support my business partners achieve their revenue aspirations by really being their finance lead in terms of analysis, reporting, insights, compliance, across the multiple countries and multiple different markets and industries. And so it's really interesting sometimes, but I find most of what I do at the moment is dealing with people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So using numbers and dealing with people and technology. Yeah.
And same team? So Sam, you're same team as Tess?
Yep. So we're both in the finance team together. So I'm the New Zealand Statutory and Tax Controller. Sounds quite technical, but it just means I look after like all the accounting, compliance, and anything related to tax. Is my area.
So this is going to be interesting. So we'll come back to the technical stuff because I guess it's in terms of Microsoft. I'm really interested to see what changes in terms of finance. But for you, Tess, I guess your heritage, like your story. I don't know where you grew up or your parents. Like, were you born here, overseas?
I'm born here in a place down in the South Island called Invercargill, which is a small city. I think we just made a city when I was growing up, about 50,000 people. My dad came straight from Samoa, and I think we joked about it. He tried to find the place with the least amount of islanders that he could, and he ventured down to Samoa.
I think he nailed it with the
No islanders like the cold.
Exactly.
But I think about it now, it was pretty inspirational at the time because he didn't really have any family. He and his mate travelled all the way down to Invercargill, didn't really speak a lot of English, didn't really have a job or qualifications, didn't know how to drive a car. And he went down to Invercargill for the freezing works, which was quite big at the time in Southland. And he worked for a bit, and then he met my mum. And I think they had a courting period of about 4 to 6 weeks. And they got married. And I've got 4 siblings. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so was this back like 60s, 70s when you came across?
My dad came over about in the 70s, and it was would have been late 70s that he ventured down to the Invercargill. So very few islanders, and it was quite isolating, I think, for him. Coming down, and he really had to build a community around him, networks, learn the language. It was culture shock. He didn't have any family. I remember him telling stories about learning to drive a car. And I think at the time to drive from where he lived to the freezing works, which was in Bluff, was like a 40 minute drive. And he didn't know how to drive a car, so he put it in first gear and went all the way to Bluff, and he didn't make it because he didn't quite make it because the car didn't survive the trip. And I think he ended up in a fence, and the police came, and cows were hurt in the process. And
so your dad's a part-time mechanic as well?
yeah.
That's when Tess gets her driving skills.
But when I look back at that, I think, man, how inspirational, because
just the bravery
the bravery, no fear, just to like go down there and just to make a life for himself, and yeah.
And was that a story you guys grew up knowing? Like he made a point of it to know that? Because that seems like a real struggle, like just to leave family and go some barren place down in the cousin people will say, not barren, just cold.
No, I actually, it wasn't until later on that we probably became more aware of that. Growing up in Invercargill, I knew my dad he looked and was different to my friends' parents because they were in the Islanders, but he didn't really share those stories with us. It was quite a disciplined household. We had chores and routines, and he actually was the one that taught me math. From in the islands, he I think only had primary school mathematics, but he was the one that taught me like long division, and so still that analytical mind I think came initially from him until you move on to high school the mathematics or becomes a little bit more advanced. But my fundamental learning around maths and accounting probably comes from on the blackboard with my dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about you, Sam? What was your parents? Your Samoan?
Tongan.
Okay,
He wants to be Samoan. He wants to be Samoan.
I got my first Tongan on the show. Shut up, bro. So what was your parents' story to come in there?
Also my dad is from Tonga. He grew up in Tonga. And then I suppose he kind of decided to come over to New Zealand, like all other island parents, to try and find a better life. Yeah. Lived with his sister in Greyland back in the day when there used to be a lot more brown people around Greyland. Worked in the glass factory, ACI Glass, I think, in Mangere for many years, supporting us as we're growing up. My mum came over. She was quite a bit younger than him.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, I think she was 21 years younger than him. So, I think that we just led that point there. But they both came over. Started life in Greyland.
Big family?
There's only 3 of us children, so pretty small for Tongan family. Part of it might have been just the age gap. Yeah. I think my dad had me when he was about 45, so
you're the youngest?
Yes, I'm the youngest. I've got an older brother and older sister. So I think that's probably why we had a pretty small family. People get a shock when I tell them there's only 3 of us.
And your siblings, your older siblings, what are they into? Like, was there a push around education from your parents?
There was a big push from my dad. He was very, very strict. Particularly on my sister and I. It was like if you miss your schoolwork or if you're late to school, straight away, hey, go outside, go get the stick or go get the belt. So, I kind of resented it at the time a little bit, just the over strictness. But then now looking back, I think it was almost a good thing. Like, he installed us to work hard, and I think just without that discipline, probably wouldn't got to where I have gotten in life. So,
with your siblings growing up, so I guess you're saying that the chores and stuff, was it the same? The push for education?
Very much so. My mum is a teacher. And so education was key in our household, I think, just because of probably my mother's background. And then I think having siblings, the best thing, and probably everyone that has a sibling will say this, is they egg you on a lot and challenge you and inspire you, they might say. And so that was our household, and I think there's probably quite a lot of households like that in terms of pushing each other in terms of achievement and learning. But yes,
And so your pathway, so I guess both of you've had that strict kind of structure around education. So in terms of the choice to, I guess, where you guys are today in finance, when did that journey start? Was it kind of a straight out of school and a straight line towards it?
Well, probably the fundamentals for me were around numbers. And so that was an early childhood thing with my dad on the blackboard. And then it just continued from there. I've always just had an affiliation with numbers, but probably at high school, I think I really wanted to become a business person, more because, you see them they allude success. And I think I wanted to have a seat at the table in terms of decision making and how that would translate into success in the bank account. Not necessarily my own, but somebody else's. Yeah. So yeah.
And so when you're saying like numbers was always the thing, and then so out of school, what was did you go straight to university or?
Out of school, I actually went and lived in Samoa for a year.
Oh.
Yeah. So my dad was actually horrified at the time. But I went and lived in Samoa, and I worked and paid my own way, except for my ticket home that my parents paid for to force me to come back and go to uni. But no, I had an awesome year. I adopted a family, or they adopted me, and my dad's family is from Nuwhalii, so I would always go on the weekends and stay with them, and then come back into up here in the city for work during the week.
So what? Like, people go on an OE. You went to Samoa.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah,
unusual OE.
Everybody used to tell stories that I'd done something naughty at home, or I had a baby somewhere, or I don't know.
Test, that's all right. Your amongst close friends test.
So did you go with anyone, or this was just some?
No, I went by myself actually, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't think I would do that again. But no, it was awesome. I loved it. Some of the things I did, I was a reporter.
Okay.
So I think my first week into the job was there was a big court case between two government officials who. I won't reference the case, but just got to go to Parliament a lot. I represented Samoa at now this is telling my age, the 2000 Olympics. So they have youth participants every year, or every Olympics, and I got to go to Sydney at the time and represent Samoa at that. So it was just an amazing year, full of so many opportunities, and I was really fortunate and truly blessed. And I would do it again in a heartbeat.
So did you pick up the language? Like, you fluent from being here for a year? No. I wouldn't call myself fluent, but I understand a lot more than before I went. And we try and speak Samoan at home. And I understand a little bit, but my language is still something that I'm working on. Cool. Wow. How about you, Sam? What was your? Do you get a desire to go anywhere like Tonga, go back to Tonga for a year?
Maybe not Tonga, but I suppose just getting into finance. I've always been good with numbers.
Okay.
Maths was always my strong subject growing up, and so when it came to go to university, I was just kind of looking at what kind of career you can make with numbers, and accounting just seemed to be like the most obvious choice for me. People, I don't know how I got good with maths. Some people probably thought got it from my dad. And I picked up his math skills at the TAB. Spent many hours there. And that's why I decided to go and study accounting at university. Just to get a career in accounting.
How was it, I guess, growing up what college do you go to? You went to
St. Paul's College, 183.
So how was that? I guess, being a Tongan boy, interested in numbers and wanting to.
Yeah,
the rest of your boys. How many of them were
you
doing
a
the
geek?
same?
Were you a geek in the
Yeah, seriously.
I must admit, I think I was one of the few boys who went there, not just to eat lunch and play league at school. Yeah, I mean, there obviously there were quite a few Tongans at St. Paul's when I was there, especially in my senior years. I think they were shipping a few over from Tonga for the rugby team, and so you know, there was a few of them that were good at maths.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just happened to just click with maths. Yeah.
So back to you, sorry, Tessa. So you guys both worked together or both interned at PwC? Is that where you guys first?
Oh my gosh!
Don't you dare swear.
We both worked at Deloitte together.
Oh, Deloitte. Sorry. Yeah. And so that's when you guys first knew of each other? From that?
Yeah. From Deloitte. So yeah, I think I was there for about maybe 10 years before Tess came along.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think I was pretty much part of the furniture when she came. So, but yeah, it was great seeing another brown face. When I started, I think there was about 100 of us grads and maybe only 3 brownies out of the 100. So yeah, that was a bit of a culture shock, especially go from a school like St. Paul's, where it's like 99% Islanders. It's all swapped around, and now you're the minority amongst it. But, yeah.
What's a grad? I've never been through a grad program. I mean, we've got grads. I've never worked closely with them. But how do they actually work? Or the one that you guys went through?
Well, I didn't start as a grad at Deloitte. I had to. So yeah, you probably can answer that one.
Oh, you started as a grad.
I think my first year. I had to work my way up to Deloitte.
Okay, yeah.
So I started in other accounting firms, and then one of the guys I worked with joined Deloitte, and then he connected me through that, Scott.
Yeah.
But in terms of like a structured program, I didn't really have one. So I don't know.
Deloitte definitely had a very well structured program. You got like a senior who would look after you, give you the work to do, and also review it. But yeah, being a grad was good times back then.
Yeah. He's failing to mention all the parties they went to, the social events.
Young, you got some money, no financial responsibilities. So yeah, it was definitely a good time being a grad, but it just gives you that opportunity to just, I suppose, learn about what it's like in the real life. Because you study for 4 years at university, but it still doesn't really set you up for the real world.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you can get into a grad role, it's a really good opportunity. I suppose kind of get your foot in the door. And it just provides you the opportunity to learn in a safe environment, because people know you're fresh out of uni and they don't expect you to they don't expect you to be
up to speed
straight away. Yeah.
What's the process for getting chosen to be a grad? Like, was there an application you had to do? Or?
So each of the accounting firms have their own application process, but you basically apply online, upload your CV and write some story about how wonderful you will be.
I guess it's almost
for
like
the company. It's almost like applying for a job.
Yeah.
But there's usually, I'd say probably about between 2,000, 3,000 applications just for the 100 roles.
Yeah.
So, it's quite a cutthroat.
Do they do this? So there was something Tovia talked about last time when we had a chat as well around those kind of programs and the way they work in Microsoft. And so do they do the same kind of with finance in Microsoft grad programs?
That's interesting. They don't do it in New Zealand. I don't think so. They have a grad program at Microsoft, and usually they have different areas that they focus on. But finance, because finance, we're quite light on the ground in New Zealand, but we have a lot of the support, like in India and Singapore, and we leverage different teams offshore. So we don't have a grad program for finance, but
more of the roles in finance are more senior type roles.
Okay.
So you wouldn't be great, but I think in the other areas,
like marketing, technical roles, engineering,
R&D.
Sales,
So how big is your team based here? How many of you guys?
Actually, technically, our team is there's us, there's a couple of people in the Philippines, there's Vietnam. So how many of you are? There's
12.
There's about 12 of us, and so we're all based sort of
worldwide.
Part of APEC. So we're part of a
Asia region.
Asia region team. Yeah.
Well, just New Zealand alone, there's 6? I think 6 of us.
Yeah.
At least there's 6 of us going to the Christmas function next week.
Yeah.
And so what's, I guess, jumping into it now. So I guess in terms of finance and finance world, what changes with the technology world in terms of?
If we're shifting to technology, for me, I just want to give a little bit of background. For me, my technology journey, I studied accounting and technology at university.
Oh, okay.
And then did a little bit of coding as well. And then when I did my OE partly to the UK after Samoa and after working a little bit, and I worked for this small tech company, software company, but I was working for a tech company doing accounting. And then moving into Deloitte, we worked in an accounting firm, but we did a lot of technology supporting. So I've always either worked for a technology company doing finance, or an accounting company with a strong lens to technology. So I've always sort of had that affiliation, and I think accounting and technology go hand in hand because a lot of the numbers need to be stored somewhere and analysed. And so they always work hand in hand. Yeah.
And also, just with accounting systems going online now, like the likes of Xero, MYB, gone are the days where, business owners used to write, books full of their figures. It's all done online now, especially with, internet. You can do your accounting work from anywhere in the world as long as you've got an internet connection. So it's it's no longer just one computer in an office.
So and so it's really changed our profession because you've gone from being sort of like Sam talked about the hardcore documentation to sort of system orientated and then more analytics. So our profession has sort of evolved over time as technology has as well, and our roles have as well.
Because I guess what was that expectation before was those business guys would just go, well, you do the numbers, I don't know numbers, and so you guys had to do a lot of that.
And so a large part of our roles previously was making sure the numbers were accurate and making sure that they were compiled and shared at a state that you could have trust in the numbers. But
going through pages of bank statements and coding each single line manually.
But now I find in Microsoft, a lot of the businesses that I support, we see the numbers at the same time. So the business gets the numbers at the same time I do. So what is my role in order to help build value to the business? So that's it's so evolved as technology has.
And has the teaching around the finance and the way you guys do things evolved as well with the change of we got to be smarter in the insights now because all that stuff's there?
I tell you, Microsoft is really good at you help yourself. If you don't know the answer, go find the answer. But yes, over time, I think as the tools have changed, our roles have changed, how we bring value to the business has evolved, and so our skill set has sort of had to go on that journey alongside it. Some of it is, I think, taught because you have to learn new systems or new analysis tools, and some of it you just have to inherently learn by doing. in failing or doing and being successful, or talking to other people and just understanding a problem or trying to understand the business more and how you can analyze it to provide insights. And then trying to find the data source and the technology to solve those problems. So it's like quantifying the question and then you looking for an answer through data. Yeah.
A big thing about, I guess, finance, it's always seen as that, the geeks in the corner and they just run the numbers. But I think you touched on a point like that change in the role of helping the business and building that relationship. How's that been for you guys? Like, I guess that journey around, I guess the Pacific people, like being better at just dealing with people and not the nerd in the corner with his books.
Yeah. For me, it was. I found it quite challenging. Just because I think just when you come from a background where island background where often if you're the youngest, you just sit there in the room and shut up and just listen to the others. Yeah. And now it's kind of flipped around and people are relying on you to, I suppose, give them analysis or some insights into what the numbers are saying. Initially I found it challenging just because of, I suppose, their cultural background. Yeah. But I think as I got more practice on it, I've got more confident with it. But I mean that was the whole switch. There's now less focus on number crunching and just telling the story of what the numbers are telling me. What do I need to do better? What am I good at? How's our sales tracking? How can we improve our sales?
You?
Me? I think I've gone through phases, if I'm honest. Like where I've been, like technically, like if I technically know the content and I technically know the subject matter, then I feel like I'm quite confident to operate in a room. But I changed roles about a year ago, and I felt like somebody goes, "Can you just go support the business?" And these are the numbers, and I was like, "Okay, so like now what?" It's taken me a little bit of a journey to sort of like understand how I can actually help the business and provide value. Yeah. And sort of you go through the journey of sort of like building your confidence on the way through, and at the same time building relationships. I've always, like, from a cultural perspective, I've always just tried to be myself. Yeah. Not tried. I actually can't hide just trying to be myself. And yeah, that's a very good point. And I think there's a lot more emphasis on that now. Like I said, when I started Deloitte, there was only about 3 of us brownies out of 100. Yeah. And I think I felt like I adapted into their world just to fit in. Just because you're kind of new, young, there's not many other faces around, so you want to fit in with your workmates and that, and so you kind of adapt to their world a little bit. But I think there's a lot more change going around now, and there's a lot more focus on just expressing yourself, acknowledging our culture, so we don't have to hide that part or to fit in with everybody. Yeah. It's like saying it's okay, I'm a Tom, and this is what we do. This is what we eat, not horse. Why you gotta go straight to eat? Hey man, 100% pure protein. So, and the thing is just being proud of the fact of who we are, and it's getting a lot more acknowledged. I suppose in the New Zealand society and in the workplace.
So both of you, before you started Deloitte or before you can start your career, you need to be a chartered accountant. You need to do your
what's it called? So you get your commerce degree, and then you do you work for about 3 years. Oh, okay. You do a lot of part-time study for the exams to become
part-time, was it?
They said it was part-time. They said only 20 hours. You're studying 60 hours in the month. And so you're studying at the same time as you're working, just to get that practical experience as well. Yeah. And so, I think after about 3 or 4 years, you do the final exam, and if you pass, become a chartered
And
accountant.
that's when you become.
Yeah.
And so once, I just assume like that's like a ticket. Is there still barriers after that? Like you're saying, there weren't many brown faces, but is that just because there's not many of us in the industry, or?
Yeah, there definitely weren't that many in the industry. So, I don't think being an islander was a barrier. It was just, there just weren't that many islanders around. Or if there were some islanders, sometimes you didn't know who they were. But there's a good group that we actually just part of that we started was the Pacific Island Chartered Accountants Network.
Okay.
Sorry, this kind of moving away from IT now. So that was one of the I suppose things that we wanted to do is just try and get a lot more of the island accountants together. It's just good to see another brown face that's an accountant.
How long has that been like coming together?
I think about 6 years. Right? 6
6
years.
Long time,
But I'll be honest, I think a lot of time it's just a bunch of us getting together to have yarns and have a drink.
And a few beers.
Were you shocked by the numbers though? Like, is there quite a few people? Or not really?
There's a lot more coming through now, right?
Yeah. There's a lot more coming through, and there's a lot more range in terms of like different roles and different stages of career and different industries, and it's quite interesting and inspiring sometimes to see.
Yeah, I think when we first started, it was probably just 6 of us.
Yeah.
Have some beers up in Ponsonby.
Sometimes it's still just 6 of us,
So
but
still looking for mates.
I know there's one around here. So.
Well, what about you, Tess? Was it any different being female in Pacific Island, or like once you like I said, once you got that ticket, I assume it shouldn't be any barriers, but perceived barriers.
I'd like to think that having a CA is like a ticket to entry, but I think probably a lot of the roles that Sam and I would probably go for, like it's assumed a lot of the expectation is like that is assumed that you would have that level of qualification. So then it's like, okay, what else? What other experience do you bring to the table?
Okay.
What other value? And actually, some of it comes down to how do you sell yourself, which I think we find really difficult to do. I know I struggle with it, and we work a lot with some of the sales teams, and they just really natural at that gift of
gift of the gab.
And it just seems so natural, and they probably wouldn't even consider it's talking themselves up, or it's just like so natural that it comes across really confident. And
islanders tend to be humble.
Exactly.
So that's probably something that I struggle with, or I try and fake to try and get across the line, because that is like something that I think we, in any role, in any profession, you sort of have to do a little bit of trying to sell yourself in a way.
And so Tovia mentioned that too, was like for us to know our worth, and being able to realize like once you're there, that there should be like you're saying, that CA should put you in the same seat as everyone else, and then you go forth. It shouldn't be.
And I think it's just a mindset to think that, hey, you're not being cocky. If you say I can do these things, it's just, I suppose, just telling, just getting the message across that, hey, you are there at the table, and you do bring skills and values to the table.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest barrier I've had, and I reckon, I don't know, Sam, you might say the same, is that a lot of the people in our profession, like, I can think of one of our best mates from Deloitte, his parents owned a business, and his circle of network were like business people from a young age. So he grew up going to dinner with them, having like birthdays with family friends, and so their network before they even walk into a professional role is extensive. They could probably ring up like 10 different chartered accountants they know, 20 different business people. And I came from a background of not knowing a chartered accountant my whole life, not having any of my family in the business world. And so I think probably the biggest barrier for me, I don't know if you might say the same, is just that we didn't have that baseline network that some of our other colleagues would naturally have.
And around that, I guess that's the thing, like that village of who you know. So with that business acumen, I guess just with your circle of friends and stuff, do you find it almost like the language is foreign sometimes? Like if you bring up work, or you can have a normal conversation around business stuff and people get it.
What's that about?
Can you please give these guys some friends and still friends?
When I tell people I look after tax, they go, "Oh, how do I pay less tax?" Or how can I avoid paying tax?
Or if we say we work at Microsoft, they go, "Oh, can you fix my Excel?"
Or can I get an Xbox? But yeah, my I suppose circle of friends in that. I mean, I'm the only accountant, so sometimes it is quite foreign to them. Often our common
just
language
sports.
is rugby. Rugby and sports.
Oh.
I don't like talking about work on the weekends.
That's the thing, yeah. Are you both passionate, or are you passionate about the work you do? Like, does it you still up learning, like constantly wanting to learn more and get better at it?
It's honestly.
She jumps out of bed every morning. For she texts me at 7 o'clock. Sam, are you up?
It's because my 3-year-old wakes me. I think you have to be naturally curious about anything, or IT, accounting. You just have to be naturally curious, and I think I'm always looking for what's the question and how can I solve the problem. But yeah, hey, don't get me wrong. Some days are like crappy, to be honest, and some days are really rewarding. But yeah, I'm always passionate about learning and building and really becoming the expert in my craft. Yeah, which is constantly evolving as well. It's you're always chasing the dream, right?
What a professional answer. I mean, I'm in the same boat. Always like to learn. With tax, even IT, things are always changing. So you always got to keep learning to stay on top of it. Especially with tax. If some law changes and you haven't done the right things, it could be quite costly.
With Microsoft, I guess because they're always looking to have an ecosystem of software and tools. So do you guys is there Microsoft, I don't know, accounting software?
Dynamics, we use this. We've got a lot of products that we use that are our own, and we use some of our competitors as well, and we build some bespoke solutions as well.
Okay.
They're really big on innovating solutions. So how do we, instead of actually one of the things we're really big on is we've got multiple different countries in the world. Instead of having like New Zealand having their own solution for a problem, if you want to build it, then you have to centralize it and then take it globally. And sometimes that can be really helpful, and sometimes that can be painful, because if you want to change anything, it means you need to articulate the value, to build a business case, get it the solution.
Oh, and you just go through all that same. So that's the thing. Do you have a team who, like, if you've got an idea, you give it to someone, or do you have to flesh it all out?
You probably there's different subjects that you might want to build better solutions around. So if Sam's got a tax solution that he wants to build, there's probably 16 different tax teams, so he would take it up through the right tax team. So it can be exhausting sometimes.
One of the challenges, I think, of being I suppose a global company is I suppose if you want to change something, it's not as easy as we'll just go and do it. You've got to go through the right channels. Sometimes you got to go up to the States to get approval to change something.
Being a global, you just mentioned that. How does that change your guys' role? I guess especially taxes, when you're thinking you got to understand New Zealand law, but then when you're global, what law are you trying to follow when you're doing any of this stuff?
She's been here longer than me.
So in New Zealand, we follow New Zealand legislation, tax law, and then part of our results will go up into Wall Street. New Zealand will make a very small element of the global results, and then
one drop of sand at the beach.
yeah. So and then from a consolidated perspective, they'll look at the consolidated results and pay tax in states, and depending on what the tax rules are, they might get a credit for the tax they've already paid in.
So all of your work is always just New Zealand law that you kind of follow.
Well,
for me, for my role,
New Zealand tax and New Zealand accounting and international, difference accounting. And so international accounting as well.
You don't want to get into it.
I think we're boring.
So, with Microsoft, what's it like being working with IT people? Do you get to have IT hours?
What's IT hours?
Can you clarify?
That's 12-hour days, right? 12-hour days.
That's what they say, working at home. But that's the thing, IT's always been very flex and kind of, you see them rocking at 11 and leave at 2. But things still get done. But does it kind of translate over into your area because you're with Microsoft?
I think during COVID and even before COVID, we had a really flexible working environment. So you could come and go as you please. You could work from home.
Okay,
so we were already operating in that environment. And then because I support other countries in Asia, and Sam has interactions with other countries in Asia, there's real flexibility.
Time difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's time difference, so there's not set hours as such. It's more deliveries. Delivery of.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you might get a call at 9 o'clock at night, but that doesn't happen every week. It just happens now and then. But they're quite flexible. Like if you have a late call, then you can sleep in the next day and wake up a bit later.
What did you have? Did you have a 3 a.m. quiz, online quiz, like a pub quiz?
Yeah, that's right. They had a conference for us, but because it was for the global conference, so they never think about New Zealand time. So
they gave it to everyone else.
So I had to dial in at 3 a.m. in the morning and try and look awake for the call. But I had a good sleep in after that.
So being at Microsoft and this global company, and you guys are, in response or responsibility around being Pacifica, do you guys have a network, or how do you, bring your whole self, that kind of, that feeling of, we're big at Microsoft, I'm bringing your whole person?
Want to talk about the DNI?
Yeah. So we have 4 diversity inclusion pillars. Actually, we've got 5 now. One of them is the Māori and Pacifica pillar.
Oh.
And just recently, I've sort of taken over as co-lead with one of our colleagues. And I think we've got about 12 or 13 different initiatives that we're driving.
Yeah.
So some of those initiatives are internally, internal focus. So how do we internally ensure that the internal culture has a level of allyship, has a level of understanding, and we build just a little of an environment of allyship amongst Microsoft New Zealand.
Just bring your true self.
Yeah.
To work.
And then the other sort of half of the pillar, we've externally focused about how we bring in things like how we bring in talent, Māori and Pacifica talent into Microsoft. What does our pipeline look like in terms of generating jobs and opportunities? How do we leverage the power of Microsoft to support our Māori and Pacifica suppliers and He Waka Noa, I think they've just renamed themselves, and just leverage some of the networks that are already out there within New Zealand. How do we build partnerships with external other companies within New Zealand and really bring a cultural lens to some of the things that we're doing, but they're doing as well.
Mm.
But one of the...
What was that agreement that we signed with Tupac? What's your rollout?
So one of the things we've recently signed is an agreement with Tuputoa to be their major partner, and what that meant was we had global funding to roll out a skill-based training to a lot of their interns and grads, and so that's really exciting. We've just announced that, and it's going to, I think, come into fruition in the next few months. So excited about what that means.
Yeah. So is there a team kind of leading that stuff? Just the two of you?
So there's myself and a guy called Daniel Lund, who's awesome, amazing, and he's been a real ally and really supportive. And they actually started on the strategy journey before I sort of joined the group. And then there's I think we've got about a team of 20 people that are really inspired. And of the about 13...
PI and non-PI.
Yeah, both PI and non-PI, mostly non-PI, that are really inspired to drive these initiatives forward. So they're actually putting their hand up to lead the initiatives. And each month we check in and we ask them, hey, how did that go? What's the next step? What help do you need?
What else is happening? What events are happening?
One of the things I want to mention, and which is big for the initiative, is just how do we make sure we take a cultural lens to technology itself, and artificial intelligence. How do we make sure that there's no bias in the technology that's built, especially from a large player like Microsoft? And how do we ensure that by signing documentation, becoming aware, signing documentation, and building that into like the algorithms that are generated, so that
isn't there a Māori translator for Teams, Microsoft Teams?
We do have some translator apps as well, but I say that they're like they become more intelligent the more people use them and the more they give feedback. And so at the moment, some of them are just maybe at age one, in terms of building their capability. There's Samoan, there's Tongan, there's Fijian.
Okay.
And Te Reo.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is that in the Microsoft Translator?
Yeah, there's an app, so anybody can download it, and they can utilize it to translate. Yeah.
With that journey, like the lens on, I guess, bringing that talent in, is it, I guess, through Tuputoa, like, is it, so it still needs to come through those sources? Like, is there any view around apprenticeships or anything like that with Microsoft?
Apprentices, not that I'm aware of at this point in time. Like, naturally, there's only a limited space of internships. Because actually, Microsoft's quite small. There's about 200 people that actually work
here in New Zealand.
Here in New Zealand, yeah. So we leverage like the Microsoft network quite heavily. And so at any one time, the number of interns we have is quite small as well. Quite like 4 or 5, so it's still quite sizable for the size of organisation we are in New Zealand, but it's not huge in terms of.
I think that's why it makes it easier to go through like the likes of Tuputoa. Where they have, I think, like 150 students looking for those intern roles. But obviously we'd like to get more intern roles, but
And do you guys interact with the technical teams? Like, do you see them much, or is it mainly just at the account levels?
Just mainly when they haven't been paid.
No. So by technical teams, do you mean the hard coders?
IT, yeah, like the engineers.
Not really, and probably not really. Because New Zealand is more focused on how do we deliver to the New Zealand environment and market.
Sales.
Service delivery around. And in those, I guess, based in New Zealand, like throughout those other roles, is there many PIs based here? Like in those service delivery, like account managers and in other roles?
Are there many PIs and service delivery in Microsoft?
Yeah.
At the moment, I think Sam and I are the only Pacifica at Microsoft. And then we've got our interns, Sunny, Dylan, and Anita. So you're looking, unless I've missed somebody. So we are the Polynesian at
Feels like starting at the again.
as well as the interns. Yeah.
Wow.
And we're both in finance.
Yeah. So when you say like that plan, like I guess those 13 things you guys are working on, how are they measuring, like, if that number is so small now, like, where does that pool of talent come from?
So the pillar is for Māori and Pacifica, but if we just counting Pacifica, it's Sam and I plus our interns, 3 interns. But you're right. I mean, how do we build on the number of Pacifica?
And not just be one out, one in. Sam's going to get another time.
Sorry, quota's filled. I think that's one of the challenges for us, and one of the things that we want to try and do is let's bring in more.
I think more organizations, I think we're a similar journey, and that's probably the same question we're trying to answer too, like, where does it come from? So I think we've partnered as well with Tuputoa, and so it becomes we're draining all from the same pool now. So where else? But I guess it's a journey. We've got to get there somehow. So outside of the workplace, what is there any hobbies or any, I guess, community work you're doing to try it?
You do me with my husband and my son. I would call that community work.
Voluntary work.
I'm trying to think of some of the things that I've been involved in. We're strongly involved with our Pacific Island Chartered Accountant Network, and we do try and pull talent and bring talent through in terms of that network. And so we do quite a number of different things in terms of events, but just connecting with each other. Yeah.
And a lot of those accountants based in Auckland or throughout?
Most in Auckland.
Mostly in Auckland, yeah.
So, and that's the thing, sorry going back, but so from Invercargill, did you guys, like, once you guys started studying, come up to New Zealand, Auckland to study, or come up to real New Zealand?
No, I transitioned, or my family moved up to Auckland partway through high school. So I went from a high school in Invercargill, James Hargis High School, that was, I think it was my family and one other Samoan family, of the size of the high school was about 1,200. And then I went to Wesley College as a boarder.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
So, and it was awesome, man. I loved it. It was, I just felt really at home. So my family moved up to Manurewa with my auntie and our family, their family. It was pretty awesome at the time. And then because my parents were still sorting out housing, etc., we boarded at Wesley College.
And so you were just around Islanders for a lot. How about you, bro? Like, I guess that growing up in Auckland and always being here, like, how's that journey being a professional around your friend, like this, in that environment? And like, have others kind of like looked and gone, oh, how do I kind of follow?
I've what's it called? I suppose going to a school like St. Paul's, most of the people who come out of there, have gone on to league, or a lot of sports fields. So, I think being an accountant, being a professional CA, was quite different. A lot more people have asked, hey, I want to get into accounting. What should I do, or what's accounting like? And I think from me, it was just more telling them about the opportunities that I suppose accounting or being a professional accountant can be like. Especially come from a background, always grew up at the State House. My dad was on the benefit, pretty much for the whole life. So never had too much money growing up. So yeah, I think just telling the story of how I can provide, I suppose, a better, a better life, but more opportunities to support, your family.
With that, I'm just thinking in terms of the technology. So something in terms of technology is that people say every job eventually is going to become a tech job. It's like, and I guess the nth degree for finance is like, well, yeah, you can get the bots to kind of run those numbers and build the insights. Is that anytime soon? Do you see it, or is that a bit of a myth?
Are you asking if our jobs are going to become redundant?
Yeah. Well, anytime soon, like, if you kind of thought it through, like in all the different areas, I guess you guys know your job, and it's so vast. So when people say that, it's like, well, not in my lifetime, or is it?
I think the talk about artificial intelligence and probably like more robotic learning has been in the talks for a few years, just around finance and I suppose professional services firms. But that's all that's been happening at the moment, just a whole lot of talk. Which is a pretty good thing. I don't think anyone wants to lose their jobs to technology. But yeah, I mean, I think it's the way of the future. It's just I suppose them just trying to get more what's it called? Not experiments, but just more projects, I suppose, to really try and test, the AI technologies. Because everybody knows the theory and what advantages and that they could bring, but just to have a real live example, I think is a challenge for the professional services firms at the moment. Because it'll require a lot of investment in like every other professional services firms, they probably want to see some return on the investment.
If I think about the journey that my career has already been on and how it's evolved through technology, and then I think look forward, I would say that there'll be parts of my role that will become redundant through technology and advancement, and that probably is a good thing because some of the tasks that any role has is mundane and doesn't add value. But I think that there's always going to be a need for finance to play a part, either through interpreting some of the numbers and the analytics, but also, I hate to say this word, but we also either hold the business to account or we translate the strategy of a business through the numbers, and sometimes the robotics and the business intelligence can do that forward looking, but it also, you always got to take what it can do and translate it with human eyes, I think. So I think that there'll be parts that will be redundant, and it's a good thing, and then there'll be our roles will continue to evolve over time as well.
And that's the thing. So does the skill or the education for finance change when the tools do a lot, but you still got to bring that value? Do you think you still need that foundational understanding of a lot of the accounting, or what?
Yeah, I think you do, because sometimes you got to have that foundation. If something looks wrong, then how do you know where it's gone wrong? And unless you understand the fundamentals, or what's behind the numbers, then you won't know where it's gone wrong, or if the answer looks funny. So there's still an element of you still want to know.
But I think that
stuff, but
but I think the fundamentals, like Sam and I, to get our fundamentals took quite a number of years. I think
it might only take 1 year now instead of 15 years.
I think the
shortcuts.
The next group coming up will go, how the hell did it take you so long to get your fundamentals? I can do this in 6 months. But I think there's always going to be a need. Potentially. But maybe we're old school already.
Well, because I guess IT, you look at a lot of IT now, and it's broken down into those short courses, and you can, if I want to do machine learning or AI, I do a 1-day course, and then I can kick off on that. Could finance break down into that? You're doing just the tax piece, would they, or do you need to know that the entirety?
I think for Sam's role being tax, like you need to understand New Zealand legislation, you need to understand the technical accounting and then you need to be able to interpret it through the numbers. And so I think that there are elements of that will still need technical. Yeah.
You can't just do it in a 1 hour course.
But some of the data analytics stuff that maybe I work through, totally, and I'm already experiencing it with the business getting numbers at the same time I do, and sometimes my business partners are running their own reports and then coming to me and validating like what they're seeing and how they're interpreting the business, and then we're bouncing off each other. So yeah, totally.
I'm just thinking around back to Microsoft and this big global organization. So I've done a lot of the training online and stuff, and so kind of like looking at the way they're moving. There's the culture clash, I guess, the way as Pacifica we work in terms of culture. Is there anything around the way Microsoft do things that just don't fit? They seem like, from an outsider looking in, a lot of the stuff they do is very forward thinking, and I kind of looking at, oh man, they're doing some really great stuff. I don't know, internally does it just clashes with culture sometimes, I don't know.
Both look at each other.
I wouldn't be transparent if I wasn't honest. I think there's always sometimes things that you maybe you can't articulate what it is, but you just feel it in your gut and you go, that just doesn't feel inclusive or right to me. And I'll be sometimes I find that there are situations that where that happens. Totally.
Well, and I guess is that part of that commitment to change? Like, so are those personal things, or is it actually part of the organizationally that just doesn't seem right?
I mean, we work in an amazing place, and I think like any amazing place is as great as it is, and is probably world class as it is, and instrumental in leading the way. I think anybody might feel it sometimes that there'll be things that just don't sit right.
Mm-hmm. Is it more personalities or?
But I mean, like, that's few and far between. I mean, you've asked a question and I'm just answering honestly.
Sorry, I keep looking at Tess because she's worked there longer than me. I've only been there for like 6 months, but I mean, some of the training, onboarding that I've done, it is a great place, and they're being more aware of, I suppose, culture. I mean, because it's the States. A lot of it's around, the black, black people and how we've been more inclusive, especially the Black Lives Matter issue they had this year. I mean, but just because it's based in the States, there's a lot of stuff around that, and so I think it's just trying to customize it, to New Zealand, to like what's happening for Pacific people, for us,
Yes.
Excellent.
Did you do onboarding training?
So I guess for anyone listening, like that journey that you've had, Sam, is there anything we haven't heard about your journey? Like, I guess coming through, growing up, and I guess the direction you've taken. Like,
I think one thing I've learned is that life. Pretty a bit more. I mean, life's never a straight line. You might have a way you expect things to happen, and then it might just not turn out that way. I mean, I've gone through school, and always thought, it's varsity and you can get a job. And I felt like when I did get through varsity, and then I did, get a job at the Big Four. For me, it was kind of like, what now? You didn't really think about anything further. I mean, and part of that might have been, just because, I was like the first one in my family to do that, and I didn't have anyone else around, my network. they've kind of gone beyond.
Yeah.
So, took a bit of, I suppose, just not really soul searching, but just finding, finding your own identity and finding, what the next path in your career is. Which is probably why I stayed at the work for like 15 years. I got too comfortable over there.
You like your 6-minute units.
But yeah, I mean, funny enough, after Deloitte, I probably had about, 5 jobs or something like that in 6 or 7 years since then.
So were those all finance jobs? So it's all been in the same
all finance. I did labouring at university school at least. I think that was enough. I think that was enough labouring for me.
I think you break a nail in the
I stick to the paper cuts.
How about your Tess? Like, have we missed anything in your journey from Invercargill up to Auckland?
I think the biggest thing for me in my journey has been, like any journey, it's not easy. And I think the thing that has got me through it is just comes down to grunt. Like, not intelligence, not even hard work. It's just pure, like, just grunt. Like, just having a goal and really going for it. And when you get knocked down, which you will multiple times, just keeping at it.
Back to that grunt, because that's very interesting, because I've always heard everyone talks about hard work, but you saying grunt, like, is your drive like what you're talking, like your siblings, that competitiveness? As soon as someone says no, I'm going to show you. Is that the grunt you have, or is it?
I don't think it's because somebody said no. It's just because I'm so focused on, I don't know about now, but previously I'd been so focused on, the next step and what I wanted to achieve. And so, it wasn't that someone said no, but I just wanted to get there. And so which way could I just navigate through it? And so in my journey, I didn't go through a grad program. I went through a couple of accounting firms before I became a chartered accountant. I had to pay for that myself. I think you guys, when you went through grad program, you're a couple of weeks off. I think I had a day off before my 6-hour exam. It was
we still worked hard.
It was just
don't try and beg us.
No. I'm just saying, and then I had to try and apply to get through to Deloitte, and there were a lot of closed doors, but I was pretty committed to what I wanted to achieve at the time.
Yeah. But what about you? So for you, bro, other than your dad giving you a hiding, what was your I guess that drive for you, was it similar? Yourself,
yeah, I think I've always been a bit of a perfectionist. If I do something, I want to do it really well. If I take up a new hobby, I took up golf. Jeez, don't even take that up.
And you'll just stick it until you...
Yeah, I watch hundreds of hours on YouTube, about different ways to swing the golf club, or, what different ball
you mean
will do to you. I was spending hours at the driving range, hitting ball.
Just
still crap, but it's still that drive, because, I want to get really good at it. So I think that's the drive for me, which sometimes could be a bad thing. You still being happy, just being to do something well. You want to.
That's good.
You want to be perfect. Yeah. Sometimes, like they say, it's better just to be good than perfect. Because no one's perfect.
Oh man, it's been I didn't even know where to go. I'm just trying to think of. I just don't want to miss anything of it. Just trying to bounce off the two of you guys. I guess what I try and sometimes I ask is if for a listener trying to listen to your journey and go, that sounds like me. Where would they? I guess it's usually around tech, but I guess you guys are finance people, so where would they
We tech finance.
Well, actually, on that point, the passion around being in Microsoft, I know you get excited because you did some of it. What about you? Is it different to any other finance job, or is it another finance?
No, it's definitely different to another finance job. From the fact that it's a global company. Talking to people in Singapore, in India, in the United States, in Ireland, instead of just talking to people in New Zealand. You're also dealing with some pretty big numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
So, my calculator doesn't reach that.
In terms of, do you see Sataya's details? No, his money. Top dog, do you see it? No, but seriously, we'll start with you, bro. So someone, really, where would you say to start for getting started?
Sorry, I just got a blank spot.
No, you go, Tess.
So where, if somebody's looking to start in a career in tech, finance and tech, I think it's about really be focused. I don't think there's a secret sauce. It's have something a goal that you want to work towards. Know that it can change, but be really targeted in that goal and be really forthcoming. Have a lot of grunt around it and work hard and just be really focused. Don't get too sidetracked by other things that are going on in your life. And I think if I was to go back into my career now, I think I was quite shy early on, and I didn't. You'd go to events and you'd see people and they'd talk and they'd say, reach out to me if you really want to. If you want to advice, or if you want to sit down with somebody, if you want to mentor, reach out to me. I'm totally open. I would never reach out to anybody because it was that person's pretty important. But I would probably jump on those sorts of things now and really leverage as much as I can. The worst that they would ever say is nothing. They would just not respond to you because most of the time that they wouldn't, it would just because they're busy, not because they don't want to help. So so two things is just have a goal, work towards it, have a grunt behind it, and then secondly, just leverage and work hard in terms of networking.
Yeah, that was the point that just came to mind when we were talking was just the networking. Go out there and talk to people. Because the more people the more opportunity there is for doors to open. Because like they say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I've seen that in real life quite a few times.
All the time.
All the time. It might be the smartest kid in class, but then, if he doesn't know anybody in the field, he might not get the role. But in saying that, you still gotta have a base level of skill and knowledge, just to be part of everyone else.
But you can always build that knowledge and that experience. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a longer or a shorter amount of time, but just being confident in your own skin or building that confidence, just go and talk to people, that just makes a difference. Because when you're actually in a working environment, to have a conversation with somebody, even though you might not have the know. I see it all the time. You see really executive people that may not have the knowledge on things, but they just leverage other people, and because they're so confident in the room, nobody ever questions anything. Anything about their voice in the room. Sure. And so, if you take that down to a grassroots level, somebody starting out of school, out of university, it's just about having conversations with people, being confident to have those conversations and network. Because the knowledge you can always build. But you need base, but you can always build it.
Yeah, and I was going to talk about confidence, but I don't know if confidence is an issue for the kids these days. I still have too much confidence. But it's good to see that change. I was the same with Tess. Like I said before, when I first started, I was really shy. Hardly spoke in the meeting. Sam, do you have anything to add? No, even though in my head, I had these ideas or comments to say.
What changed? Because I guess that's anyone listening is going to go, let me network, let me jump out there. How? And I guess you're saying I used to, but now what's changed?
Yeah, I want to know the answer to that. What changed?
A few beers. You have about 3 beers before you go and talk to people.
I'm good at that networking.
No, honestly, that's no. I think with me, it was probably just experience over time. Just time being at Deloitte, just getting my confidence grew to talk up. But obviously, if you can do that a lot earlier, then you can. It's just changing. Just being more confident in myself and just feeling like you belong in that room. It's just, like I said, it's just a mindset thing. Once my mindset switched to that, then sometimes you couldn't shut me up.
It's true.
Like,
this guy's getting too confident.
And sometimes like, where'd this guy come from?
But then the other thing I think is that some of the people that you think are so senior that you sort of when you're early on in your career that you couldn't really talk to in a certain way. Once you get more familiar with interacting with them, and then you start talking about like personal stuff. Not too personal, but a little bit. And then it just becomes more natural, I think, as well.
Yeah, you feel like you're talking like the same level with them rather than, like an up-down, like a teacher-student type relationship.
Awesome, guys. Oh, man. I have nothing else to add. Awesome journeys. Thank you so much for sharing your journeys. I guess for anyone listening, how can they get a hold of you guys if they want to know more about Microsoft or your guys' careers and your journey? How do they reach out to you, Tess?
Best way is on LinkedIn, probably. Tess Otineru, and I'm happy to post it in the.
What's your TikTok account?
That's you.
Likewise. LinkedIn, or if you're not on LinkedIn, hit me up on Facebook. My profile is not private. Unfortunately. Hey, there wasn't a fishing expedition. I'm engaged, Tess. What are you talking about? I'm engaged.
Spam. But please do, because honestly we love just interacting and sharing journeys and just leveraging our networks as much as possible.
Especially helping the younger generation coming through.
That'll be the people reaching out. Yeah. Or us just trying to get some help. I'll send you my texts now.
Charge your mates for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Been a good night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tyler. It's awesome.
That's us.
Cool. Awesome.